From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything I you we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric, and as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier hysterics. Hoosier hysterics. Hoosier hysterics.
Hello, Ward.
Can we just get this over with?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are minutes after Indiana got dog walked, boat raced, embarrassed, taken to the woodshed, ass beaten by a mediocre Ohio State team, a team in a program that Woody had no trouble beating for the last 4 years, a program that is not good. And we're going to get into that. But before I'm angry. I'm like, look, man, I'm pissed off. I am. I've been really good this year about not being pissed off. But Northwestern game pissed me off.
Yep.
And this game pissed me off. And the only thing that's keeping my head on my shoulders is the fact that I'm wearing this hat on top of it, which says national champions, because that's what Indiana football is. But before we get to any of that, Ward, we are
powered by
CommunityCars.com. Sponsor of the pod, Hoosier Hysterics. CommunityCars.com. Hoosier Legends talk with Ward and Eric. CommunityCars.com.
fade out. Community cars. You know, in a world where you can't rely on beating teams like Northwestern at home or Iowa at home or shitty teams like Northwestern.
Oh, wait. You're talking about basketball,
USC.
not football, right?
I am. I'm saying in a world where you can't rely. I'm sorry.
Because we beat all those teams in football. I was just remembering how wonderful that was. But you're right. You're right. We're here to talk about basketball, as sad as that is.
In a world where you can't rely on those things that you thought you could rely on, it's good to know you can rely on community cars to take care of you if you've got to buy or lease a new or used car.
You know who's undefeated? All-time national champs. Community cars.
Community cars. Undefeated.
Undefeated national champs. Number one on our hearts. Number one in all the consumer polls. All the consumer polls. When they take polls of people who are satisfied with their car dealership in Indiana and central southern Indiana and the Midwest and the continental 48 and the North American continent writ large, Community Cars comes in number one in the polling all the time. Unanimous.
They are the 76 team, and if you saw me just now, I looked at my hat because I remembered our conversation about what do we call the football team, and I took the side of how crazy can you be that you don't know, and I completely forgot. Do we say we're the 26 champs or are we the 25 champs?
Well, how could we be the 76 to 26 champs, the 50th anniversary? Like, everybody's like, oh, it's exactly 50 years, exactly 50 years. But if you say it by the names, it's 49 years. It's just, we got to get on the same page here, people.
Yeah, it was 50 years by the calendar year of the year we won the game in.
I mean, let's just get
put that on a t-shirt.
We won the basketball championship in 1976. We won the football championship in 2026. People are trying to make this more complicated than they should.
I agree. So that's what Community Cars is. They are the 2026, 1976 teams.
Because my Rose Bowl hoodie is 2026 Rose Bowl champs.
I know, but yet this hat says 2025.
It doesn't make sense, Eric. Just like this basketball team being so shitty doesn't make sense.
All right. Well, look, we got a lot to say about it, but it's been a while since we've had on one specific particular guest to weigh in on basketball. We have not had him on this year to weigh in on basketball since the very beginning. We had him on right at the top of the year, didn't we? Because he was talking about what he saw and what he liked.
Yeah, and we talked to him right after the championship in football, or was it one of the bowl games?
I think so, but just about football.
Yes.
I didn't think, but it's been a while since we talked to him about basketball, and he is, of course, old number 34, old lefty, Big Ten Player of the Year, NBA draft pick, NBA career, one of the best players to ever wear the candy stripes, Big Ten champion, made the Final Four, made Sweet 16s, made Elite Eights. He is none other than Brian Dutch Evans. All right, man. Well, look, first off, how are you? It's been a while. How are you?
Good. Very good. Thanks.
Very polite, very professional. All right, man. So it's been a while since we talked to you about basketball. I think Ward and I were just talking about it. I think the last time was more of a football. Can you believe this is happening? And we were comparing Kurt Signetti to Bob Knight and talking about the similarities there. You know, this season, what's your take, man? What's your initial take? Because I think we can all agree the season is over now after losing that game in horrific fashion to a mediocre Ohio State team. What's your take on what we saw this year?
Well, the preseason schedule didn't tell us a lot. At the Marquette game, I was kind of flying high, thinking Marquette would end up better than they were. And we played better. I mean, we played, I'm thinking from like right now, what we've been seeing, we were playing a lot better back then than we are now. That's disappointing.
Specifically, how? Do you mind, Brian, just like what you saw then compared to what you see now, like where the digression was?
And some of it's the Big Ten. I mean, I think it's the best scouted league there is.
Yeah.
And they make things harder, but again, didn't know who Marquette would be. And at the time, flying a little bit high. Then we had that stretch, the West Coast, with you guys were at the games, and winning out there. It felt like a big deal. And the team just, the ball was moving better and more people were involved. And golly, in the last couple weeks, it's just kind of gotten worse and worse. Starting with the Northwestern game. That was the one that I think when we look back on the season, we'll just circle it in the calendar. That's when the season came off the rails, because you win that game, I feel like we were, easily going to be in the tournament. And you just can't have a loss like that at that point in time when the other team had nothing to play for.
Yeah, I actually, to back it up, I actually think it was the USC game is where the wheels started to come off, because we did grind out a win at UCLA. Now, granted, UCLA was playing out without their one or two best player, but we grinded out a win at Pauley, which was a big win. And then we shit the bed against USC, which was a bad team, a mediocre team. Then but actually you're right, Brian, because then we did come back and beat Wisconsin. We beat Wisconsin, we beat Oregon, and then we just got boat raced by Illinois, Purdue, lost at home Northwestern, boat raced by Michigan State at home, never in the game from moment one. Minnesota doesn't even count. It's a JV game. And then we got boat raced again by Ohio State. I guess my question is, I'm trying to be positive.
Why?
Because I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be angry about the program after year one of a new coach. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be. I am.
And that's why I'm like, I don't know why you're pushing against your natural state of being, which is the same as pretty much everybody else who's an Indiana basketball fan at this point. Those of us who remain, because we're not just angry about this season or this game or this last stretch of games. We're pissed off because it's a different coach and it's the same result. Like we saw this in year one of Archie and year one of Woodson, and throughout their tenures, very similar, hovering around 500 in the Big Ten, just below, just above, on the bubble, just in this land of mediocrity with the Minnesotas and Ohio States of the world, and nowhere near where we were when Brian Evans was playing for us.
Yeah, fair. So I'm going to turn it back to Dutch. I guess my question is, why is this different than Woody's last 2 years where we went 10-10 in the Big Ten each of the last 2 years? Why is it different than 3 of Archie Miller's years where he was 9-9, 8-12, 9-11? It does feel stylistically different, Dutch. It does feel, I don't know why, but it does feel a little better. But is that just bullshit? Are we kidding ourselves?
Well, it is. I mean, you can't deny it is like those seasons, where you're on the outside of the tournament looking in. You're within a game or two of the bubble, or I'm sorry, as the play-in, and those are really mediocre seasons for Indiana. But now they've become the norm. That's just the reality.
Dutch, I put this stat out. Ward and I have talked about it a little. In the last 30 seasons of Indiana basketball, 30. So it does stretch back to the very end of your tenure. But the last 30 years, Indiana basketball has won more than 11 games in the Big Ten. Okay, just more than 11. 4 times in 30 years. 4.
Wow.
And 1 time in the last 10. That was Woody's second year, 12-8, with Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson-Davis. 4 seasons of more than 11 wins in the last 30. However, I keep thinking back to that interview with Curt Cignetti, where they asked him about playing at Penn State, right? And your team's record is, 2-100 against Penn State. And his immediate reaction was, my team's never played here. Right? This team's never played here. You remember that quote?
I mean, that quote, to me, goes up there with my team is on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's just epic. The fact that he said that. I got the chills. I was watching it and I saw it live. And I mean, I was just spinning around going, did he just say that? That's all he had to say and walked off. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen.
It was, and it's true. What the program did before does not affect how you play against Penn State. And no matter what, Ward, and I get it from fans' perspective, we're upset because of the accumulated failure. But nothing that happened with Woody or Archie or Tom or Mike Davis or Kelvin, none of that affects going into Ohio State in a game that means everything and laying a fucking egg. None of it does. It doesn't matter what happened before. Lamar Wilkerson doesn't know who fucking Miller Kopp is. He doesn't know who, I don't know, Devin Dumas is. Like, he has no idea. It doesn't matter. None of that shit matters. So why are we back to a $10 to $12 million payroll for a team that goes into Ohio State where everything's on the line, and at halftime we're down 50 to 33. We gave up 50 and only scored 33. Why, Dutch? Why are we here?
Well, I am excited about next season. And excited about personnel changes. So I think instead of trying to hash this thing up, we could. I mean, I may be up for it another time, but you caught me off guard with the podcast, and so I'm not ready to do that right now. But I think it's fair to be excited about personnel changes because the way it worked is Darren gets the job. In the world of the portal, he got it kind of late. I mean, deals have been made, deals have been done. And, he's taken over, he's moving it, there was no time, he had to go get a staff. I mean, he was behind the 8 ball with this group. Other than, certainly getting his son, he's building it from scratch. And I think a little bit late, have a lot of resources. There's some winners, and they're on our team. They won, in a lot of ways. And so, I mean, I don't feel like we could look at
what are you talking about? What do you mean they're winners? You mean guys that just cashed in and got money? Is that what you mean?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it is, we had a lot of resources to put towards the portal. I don't think we got I'm trying to think the way I want to say this. We didn't win. I mean, we paid a lot of money, and I would say we've got to have one of the most underperforming rosters as it relates to money spent in the portal. Is that fair?
As as it
100%.
looks, by all reports, a top 2 payroll in the Big Ten, roughly top 15 in the country. So to come in the bottom half of the Big Ten, when you're top 2 in payroll, NIL, and I'm sure the coaching payroll is right there too, and then in a 68 team tournament, to be looking well on the outside now when you have a top 15 payroll is like, maybe you got a couple week late start, but I don't really buy the argument that that is enough of an excuse when you have that kind of money, that kind of resources, that you can't finish in the top half of an 18 team conference, and you can't just be wondering what your seed is on selection Sunday, as opposed to, gosh, I can't believe we didn't get in again.
And Ward, he didn't even have to finish in the top half. He could have finished 10th and gone 10 and 10. He could have finished
but for
10th.
a top 2 payroll, I don't care if you get the job in August. I want to be in the top half.
Yeah, oh, no, I agree with you, but I'm saying just make the tournament. We all said just make the tournament this year. And he didn't even need to finish in the top half of the Big Ten to make the tournament. And look, Dutch, I know every situation is different, but Virginia is one of the top 15 teams in the country. They have a first-year head coach, and he had to build it basically a brand new team. And he's a top 15 team in the country and going to be a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Iowa is in the tournament. North Carolina State is probably in the tournament. Texas is in the tournament. First-year coaches. There are a handful, 5, 6, Miami of Florida, first-year coach. They're in the tournament. Like, there is no, let me be clear. In no way, I want to be as clear as possible. In no way am I or Ward saying, get rid of the guy. Any fans who are on Twitter who are saying that, it's ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But it is equally ridiculous to spin this season as anything other than a failure. Like, multiple things can be true. This season can be an abject failure, and he still could be a lot better next year and be on the right path starting next year. But this year did not put us on the right path. We don't have a bunch of guys that we can count on for next year. We didn't make the tournament, so there's no like momentum for the program. It's starting from scratch again next year, and he's got to go find a new starting lineup. Like, do you think Dutch, Sicily, or Dorn, would you pencil anybody in to start that's on the roster right now that'll be on the roster next year? Josiah Miles? Would you be comfortable with any one of those guys being a starter next year?
No, I don't think so. I'm watching other games. I'm watching Duke right now, Duke and Carolina. And, you see guys come off the bench that are, they're fighting for playing time on these top tier teams. And man, they would be starring for us right now. And you just get bits and pieces of them, and you're looking forward to next season going, hey, I can't wait to see what that kid does over the summer, right? You get to know their names. I don't feel like we have that guy, or guys like that. It'd be nice to have a stable of, 3 or 4 of them that are developing, that everyone's excited. You see flashes, like Oladipo in his first year didn't play a lot, but when he got in, you're like, whoa, what was that? That was a tornado, and that guy was athletic and raw. But and then you find out he's in love with the game, addicted to the game, and that's just a ton of fun to watch guys develop like that. And no, to answer your question, I don't see it. I mean, we're losing all those seniors, and I don't see a deep bench of guys that you're watching and getting excited about watching them develop.
Well, wait, let me take a step back, first of all, because I have heard, as Dutch, you chimed in with the late start theory. So I want to take that idea combined with a lot of the programs, Eric, you just mentioned. Darren DeVries was hired on March 18th. Now, Miami hired Jai Lucas like a couple weeks before, March 6th. But then DeVries was hired on March 18th. Odom at Virginia, March 22nd. Will Wade at NC State, March 22nd. Iowa hired Ben McCullum on March 24th because we didn't. And Texas hired Sean Miller on March 24th. So of all those teams you rattled off, and I might have missed a couple, only Miami got their guy before we did. So I think that theory is out the window and not something to hang our hat on. Now, Dutch, to what you were just saying about flashes of like Oladipo and who we're looking at for next season, I've saw some athleticism and some exciting things later in the season from Jasai, but obviously he is all over the place and not reliable. And while I would be excited to see his development just based on his athleticism, I don't have a lot of confidence in it for him to be a starter next year. But to your point, a bigger point, I think, is that we got to watch Vic develop from year to year to year. And what this season was for us was a bunch of strangers who showed up less than a year ago. And now a lot of them are gone, and we're going to have to do it all again next year. So I'm afraid the era of watching these guys develop while upperclassmen sort of carried the load. I think we've all sort of accepted that's gone, but we're living it now. Like, oh, all these guys who did everything for us this year are now gone, and they didn't do anything. And at least when we're seeing football do it, these guys have come in for a year or two over the last 2 years, but because they're so good and Sig's a genius and we won a national championship, we're going to love Fernando Mendoza forever. I think we were all impressed by Lamar, but because it didn't come with real winning, he's just another guy that came and went for a season and has a couple of records.
No argument. I mean, I think that's really well said, well stated, and the evidence you provided was top shelf. I'm just going to leave it at that. You nailed it.
So
thank you.
But I do want to go back to, it feels different than Archie and Woody. When we had Archie, the offense from year one, from moment one, looked terrible.
We enjoyed that Marquette game.
We did, when Evan Fitzner went crazy.
This is what I'm saying. Marquette, we got to get them off of the pre-conference schedule forever.
It's misleading forever, for all time. But the offense was terrible from day one with Archie. It really was. And with Woody, we knew we were playing a style from day one that was left in the 90s. Bigs, post up, back up, 5 dribbles, and just run everything through the post. With Darren, from the jump, and granted, it was against shitty competition, where you're able to do what you want more. And to Brian Dutch's point, you're not scouted as well as you are when you get to the conference portion of your season. You're able to go through the motions and do your stuff. And we looked better. It felt like modern basketball. And even in losses, and even in underachieving this year, it still felt better to me overall than watching Woody's teams play or Archie's teams play. Dutch, am I wrong about that? Am I just grasping at straws? Or are we at least seeing a foundation of the system he wants to run that can work with the right personnel? Whereas before, we didn't even have the right system, and we did have better personnel.
No, I think that's spot on. I mean, we did not like that style. It did not look good. It was not going to win anything. And again, I don't want to give him any credit for TJD being there. I mean, had he not stayed twice, I mean, I just don't know how bad that would have been.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think the style was more exciting. The ball was moving, a lot of deep threes, even early season. I wasn't in love with it just because I just know that's not going to play. You're not going to win consistently in the Big Ten with that style of ball, just chucking deep ones and typically just 2 different guys. But the ball is not going to move the same in the conference as it did in the preseason, number one. I don't know. It just got stagnant and just got it just didn't. I go back. I just don't think it's enough personnel. I've been watching a lot of college hoops this year, more than I have in a long time. And I think it's, hey, there's a lot on this hire with Ryan Carr. He's definitely the guy that can do this. The resources are there. I want to get excited. Back to you. I don't want it to be the case. I don't want a new batch of guys. Be nice if you had, a core of 3 or 4 or 5 every team you bring in 3 or 4 out of the portal, maybe 5. But this whole 9-10 man roster we're going to rebuild every year. It's just that's not going to be any fun. I hope that's not. I hope that doesn't continue.
I agree. And
Yeah, well, I
which
did.
9 is important, right? Real quick, just to follow up on that, it's like you could almost stomach bringing in 7 guys from the portal if 3 of the guys that you're bringing back are starters minutes and playing 25 minutes a game and you can rely on them. But we have to go now get like 5-6 guys who are going to dominate the minutes.
Yep.
So it's like it just now, granted, we have 3 people in the recruiting class and hopefully it changes, but it's just frustrating.
Well, and Brian, I want to come back around to your excitement about Ryan Carr, and we will momentarily. But first, I was just thinking yesterday, why when constructing this roster, and we thought maybe there was more of a like, hey, let's get a little more depth. Let's be able to go 8 or 9 instead of maybe paying all the money to a couple guys up top, though we still probably did that to a large degree with Lamar and Tucker. So anyway, why hold on
when constructing the roster,
could you tell I lost it and you're trying to bring me back?
I am. While you think of that, I will say, and this is going to be unpopular, but it is the thing that has been talked about in behind closed doors and amongst friends. Tucker hurt him. The fact that he brought Tucker over and had to bring Tucker over hurt the overall makeup of the team because you had to dedicate roughly a little less than 20% of our personnel budget went to Tucker. A little bit more than 20% went to Lamar. So you're at 40% for those 2 players, and Tucker has severe limitations at this level. Severe. He can't defend. He can't guard 4s or 5s. He can't guard 3s. And he doesn't get the space that he likes to have to get his shot off at the Big Ten once he was scouted. I mean, today he went 1 for 7 from 3. I mean, like that, I do think that hurt him. And I think it hurt him to coach his son the first year at Indiana. I wish his son would have come next year or something. Well, I think it hurt him.
I think, look, that was an odd situation. It is what it is. He's coming off an injury. We never saw that kid play more than 8 games at the high major level. And whether it's the shoulder injury or just the way he's built, he wasn't built to be a big time performer. He could have been a solid contributor and was often throughout the season. I think more once he found his role. I did rediscover my point was Tucker being an exception, and you have a talent like Lamar, you can get him, but that you consciously went through and brought in a bunch of these 1-year rentals that you knew were going to be gone. And then like, why weren't you thinking in the last recruiting cycle, bringing people in for the portal? Why weren't you thinking I need to be really disciplined and make sure at least half of these guys, half of my main rotation, say 6-7 dudes, I have to feel really good that 3 or 4 are going to be coming back for year 2. Otherwise, I'm just going to be right back in this same position. And he is. And I think anybody who has any experience in this has got to know, like, you need to plan ahead. You can't just say, hey, and I'm going to win 25 games my first season with all these seasoned dudes, and then the rest will work itself out. But now we have Ryan Carr coming in.
Well, wait, though. I want to stay on that point, Ward, because I think it's a great point. And the really weird thing is the guys that we do have coming back are Josiah, or that have eligibility to come back. Who knows if they'll come back? We don't know.
Yeah.
But it's Josiah Miles, Nick Dorn, Josh Drake, or Jason Drake, Josh Harris, and the 2 foreign guys, one Ristic who barely played a couple minutes here in their guard, and then a big man who we never saw the entire year. You do have like 5-6 guys that have eligibility to come back. I'm not counting Sicily in that, who did show promise early in the year and is a freshman, has to develop. But you have 5-6 transfers, mostly transfers that you took, that you cannot rely on. You cannot rely on those guys to give you big production. So it's almost it's a worse situation than you painted, because not only did you not get impact players that you can count on for another year, you got a bunch of non-impact players that you may be forced to bring back because you can't go out and get 10 more new guys.
Definitely not. Though you might have to.
Yeah.
Can't you just so these other guys, I don't even know their names. Can you just tell them it was a 1-year deal and
100%. You
see you
can.
later?
You can, Dutch, but then you're in a situation where it is really hard to do a wholesale change. It is really difficult. I mean, look, Darren didn't do a good job of it in year one, a wholesale change. And granted, Sisley you keep, but you don't want to do 12 new guys, right? You don't want to do it.
And what did we hear? What did we hear Jimmy Jackson say on the broadcast today that everybody knows, whoever watches college basketball? It's about guard play, and in particular point guard play. And I think he hamstrung himself again with Connor. And I know he was beloved by the fans for his grit and ability to get under the skin and, make some smart plays, but very limited, much like Tucker. But that's okay. Those are your blankies you're going to bring with you to make you feel good and establish your culture and the way you want to play to your other guys. Fine. But then you also bring in Tatum. And obviously that didn't work out and he got injured. And then he was very, very much persona non grata for the rest of the season. So now also we have nobody handling the ball next year. Nobody.
Ward, no point guard, no big man, no 2 guard.
Are those important in modern college basketball?
And no 4, because Tucker was your 4, basically. You don't have any of them coming back. You have nothing coming back. You have to replace, to your point, you have to replace all of the production that you had this year, and the production you had this year wasn't good enough.
And look at what, I'm sorry, you live in Bloomington now, and this is the comparison you're going to draw. But with Signetti, you look what he did in year one, which was remarkable, and he did lose some dudes. But like a lot of those JMU guys, people he brought, they were around for year 2. Aiden Fisher, Elijah Sherratt, D'Angelo Pons, like a lot of those dudes
Mikal Kamara.
We're like, yes, they're not just going to be, to this sort of transition period. In his case, it was a 2-year transition that ended in an undefeated national championship. But I'm like, Tucker wasn't that. Connor Enright wasn't that. These aren't guys that you can count on. Not that we necessarily would, and it might actually end up being to our advantage that they have to go away because they're out of eligibility. And now you're forced, after a year in the Big Ten, to be like, now I know what Big Ten competition looks like up close. And now hopefully Ryan Carr and my assistant coaches, some of which have experience in the Big Ten, can help me better assess who's going to be effective in conference play.
Yeah. So Dutch, talk to us about Ryan Carr. What do you know of Ryan? I know you know him a bit. What do you just know about him as a guy?
Well, he's been doing what he was doing for a really long time. We live in each other's backyards, not too far from one another. So I see him often, a couple times a year for coffee or whatever, and talk probably 4 or 5 more times a year. And that's through a lot of years. So, I mean, the guy knows player evaluation, but he's super organized at the core, in talent scouting and looking for talent at the high school level, at the college level, organizing efforts and, building a team around him. I've got a ton of confidence in him. I just know, I don't know everything there's to know about how this portal works, when it actually starts, does it ever close? I'm very skeptical of the whole thing. I think deals are going on right now. I don't know how programs like Purdue, and Matt Painter made a comment the other day that he doesn't need to hire somebody like Ryan Carr. And I didn't hear him say it, but I've been told that he said it. I don't know how. I think he's at a crossroads myself, just
Totally
with what's
agree.
going on there. I mean, they're losing everybody, and they're not looking very good right now either. So
They're 6 and 7 in their last 13 games.
just think how hard it would be, though. I mean, I would need so much help because I would not be able to recruit people to produce. So, like, if I was Painter, I would need like a huge staff of people trying to recruit for me. Because just imagine how hard it is to get people to come to Lafayette.
Oh, he needs Sydney Sweeney as his recruiting coordinator.
Yes.
Like that's what he would need to get people to come to Purdue.
I mean,
or just whoever you like at Purdue that would consider Purdue, go out and get their first cousin. And that one might help you. That might help you.
Oh, but he's going to do it himself. I mean, I think they're at a crossroads. I think I don't know who he has coming in, but
He's
They're
got a good
losing
recruiting
everything.
class
I
on
mean,
paper. He's got a good recruiting class.
th-
But look, the
this
guys
is
that have ignored the portal for the most part have not been successful in
Right.
football and basketball. Dabo
Yep.
Sweeney made a big deal about I'm not doing portal. His teams have sucked the last couple of years.
Yep.
Shaka Smart at Marquette has said we're not doing portal, and his team sucks this year. So like it's just the world we're in, and you can't ignore
Yeah.
that huge influx of old talent. You just can't ignore it. You got to be smart about it and good about it, but to ignore it seems silly and arrogant, truthfully.
yep.
Dutch, anything there?
Yeah. That was spot on. It's here to stay. And I think if
Well, we don't know. Donald Trump is apparently releasing an executive order this coming week that he says will fix college athletics. Now, he even said in the statement that they're going to get sued because the president cannot like grant cannot grant antitrust exemptions. He can't. It's clearly laid out that the Congress has to do that. So it's going to be a nightmare and create more chaos, but you know he's going to rattle something. He's going to rattle a cage, and who the hell knows what's going to fall out. What I do know is there will be more chaos. There will be more chaos.
well, we have somebody now that can run the portal and that's gonna be able to rank and file the talent that's available. I'm sure he's he's got all these relationships with the agents. That's critical. And he knows the game. I mean, I know for certain the guy knows the game. That's why I always reach out to him, is just to talk about players I see, whether it's NBA or college, because he's got everybody in his. I mean, he knows all the names, and he has forever. That he's a ton of fun to talk to for that reason, at least for me.
Well, and when you look at who his mentors were, from Larry Bird to Rick Carlisle, Kevin Pritchard, these are Hall of Famers that have brought home a lot of success to the great state of Indiana. And I love that he is a cream and crimson Hoosier to his very core, and that he's been following team and watching the team. And I think when you look at, again, a lot of success that's going on in football, it is about organization, and it is about recognizing that talent, developing that talent. Now, what we saw on the court, Dutch, because Ryan can get it all organized and can help whittle it down. So Darren only has to look at the best of the best that would be good for his system. We assume Ryan's going to be looking at fit as much as that, and who can we actually get, who can we afford, who's worth this, who's worth that. I would say, as a positive, if you're trying to get in scorers, guys who can shoot the ball, wouldn't you, Brian, as somebody who is a scorer who could shoot the ball, there would be a lot more appeal in pitching Darren's system than it would have been for Archie or Woody. You know, all you'd have to do is really run the tape of Lamar this season, or a couple games of Dorn, or a few of Tucker. And that's a relatively easy sell to a player who's considering your school, despite what your win-loss record was this year. Would you agree?
I think the shooters would want to come if they watched us, at times, if we could pick the highlights. I think you could attract shooters. I think he's shown enough with his offense of how he wants to play. I don't think we always executed that, and we got stagnant and, had a lot of stretches with no scoring. But no, I think for the most part, it's more of an up tempo kind of offense, push it ahead, if there's opportunities, take them. As shooters, that's a pretty cool environment. I mean, but again, I think it's a ton of pressure, at least for his career, a ton of pressure on this portal. I mean, I know if we were in this same situation next year, it won't feel like this. I mean, people will be upset. As we look around and we see other teams kind of rebound, hire a new coach, rebound, jump in the game, be in the tournament, maybe advance in the tournament. I can only be so jealous for so long. You know what I mean? Why can't we do it? And if we see, we go for 2, say we do this again next year, I mean, people are going to be fed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the apathy, it didn't just all go away when Woody got fired. The apathy is still very much at it's right there. And this wasn't the kind of season to bring people back into the fold. We all just woke up from this football dream, realized, oh my God, it's February, and we have another I think, mediocre basketball team, but then we beat Purdue and then we beat UCLA in double overtime at Pauley. And we were like, oh, wait, no, this is the best month ever to be a Hoosier. And then that dream was rudely awakened. And we were like, oh, no, we're going to go back to not caring about Indiana basketball. And though I watched every minute of every game, I still, in my heart, like you said, you can only be so jealous for so long. I'm the same way. Instead of being jealous and looking at the top 10 and seeing Kelvin Sampson and Matt Painter and Dusty May, I'm just like, we won in football. I'm just going to think about that because I don't think I'm going to allow basketball to really hurt me again until we're good.
Well, that makes one of us, because I am hurt and angry and pissed off, and I've tried to be good this season, but I'm just, good, not even good teams, but what you hope about your team is that you're better in March than you were in November. We are 6-10 in our last 16 games.
We lost 6 of our last 9.
Yes. I mean, and that includes losing at home. We lost 4 home games this year, and 2 of those were to Iowa and Northwestern. We lost on the road to Minnesota and USC. We got blown out this year by Ohio State, Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois. We got blown out by Michigan and Iowa and Michigan State twice, I should say. We got blown out by Kentucky, who ended up beating us by 12. We got blown out by Louisville. Like, we talked about, we're tired of getting blown out because Woody would get us blown out. We got blown out just as much this year. We did.
Easily.
Like, stylistically, there's something to be excited about. Performance, there's nothing. There was nothing this year that makes me feel good about this season. And if you're spending $10 million plus on a roster, you got to make a tournament that includes 68 teams. I mean, you just got to make the tournament. And we're not going to make the tournament. We're not going to make it. And, all right, Dutch, we don't want to keep you all night. It's late for you. Any last words from you? And then Ward and I will commiserate some more.
We're not going to make it. You're just, you said it 3 times. I think you hammered it home. And I think I should just close with, we're not going to make it.
Ugh, depressing to hear that. Dutch, we love you.
All right, boys.
That was our guest. That was our guest.
I just go back to the fact that you look at this team. We lost 5 of our last 6, 6 of our last 9, 10 of our last 16. This team got worse as the season went on. It got worse.
Yeah, because we got into the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think that, no doubt.
Everything was pretty hunky-dory until we played real teams.
Well, so we can talk about 2 things. We can talk about schedule, but we can also talk about, Ward, 20-point loss to Illinois, 29-point loss to Purdue, 4-point loss at home to Northwestern, who is awful.
You said early on, it might have been before the season or near the beginning of the season, you were like, there's no reason we shouldn't at least be competitive in every game. And of course,
and now look, that's a little bit foolhardy, right?
But you go to Michigan and you get waxed. You go to Illinois, you get waxed. Understandable. Would happen to most teams in the country. But guess what? Like, game after game after game against top opponents, we got embarrassed for stretches of the game, often in the second half, where we're like, we're not in the same league as these teams. And it wasn't always necessarily Illinois or Michigan. Michigan State, okay, pretty good team. Purdue, okay, pretty good team. Should we just be, they made us look like we made Penn State look like there's that big a gap between us and them as there is between us and Penn State.
Yeah, I think it's 8 games we lost by double digits, but Louisville ended up being a 9-point loss. We got blown out in that game. It's been an ugly season. It's been an ugly season. And 9-11 in the Big Ten is as bad as Archie was. I mean, a couple years worse than that. But Woody, his first year, went 9-11 in the Big Ten, and he made the tournament. He did enough to make the tournament.
I just think the Big Ten has good coaches. They have good programs. Indiana always has at the most or almost the most money and resources and connections and history and everything else. So we don't finish at the very bottom, because there's just too much of an infrastructure around the program to let you can't, too big to fail, right? Too big to fail, but with
too big to fail big.
Yeah, too big to fail big is the story of Indiana basketball for the last decade. And same result, different coach. And I want to go back to, this is a more pleasing style to look at. It just needs better talent. Okay, how do you get better talent? You bring in somebody like Ryan Carr. There should be enough money there. And if you have this guy helping you both assess the talent and spend the money, that is a real move by Scott Dolson and Coach DeVries to address this issue. But that's, like it is so often the case for Hoosier fans, that is the hope for the future. The present is another disappointing season where you declared over and over, and I agreed with you, you have to make the tournament or the season's a disappointment. We're not going to make the tournament, and the season is a disappointment.
Mike Davis, 6 years at IU, had one season where he was 7-9. The rest, 10-6, 11-5, 8-8, 10-6, 9-7. The year he got fired, he was 9-7 and finished 4th in the Big Ten and went to the NCAA tournament and won a game. And it was a 5-alarm fire to get rid of him, which we agreed with. It wasn't good enough. And the future wasn't good enough. Here we are.
I'm just curious, just to see how far the mighty has fallen. What was like the post Chaney or post Brian Evan years under Coach Knight? What did those Big Ten teams look like? Because we were there and we were starting to freak out, and this is
9-9.
9-9
was the worst year. We tied for 6th in the Big Ten, and we went to the NCAA tournament. Then 9-7, tied for 5th in the Big Ten. 9-7, tied for 3rd in the Big Ten. 10-6, tied for 5th in the Big Ten. Won 2 NCAA tournament games during that time, and then lost in the first round his last year.
So, and I mean, look, you're hovering around, 2 to 4 wins over 500. That's not so far above and beyond what we've been living with ever since.
No, but look, it's all the difference in the world, Ward. It's all the difference in the world. You can't go 9-11 in the Big Ten. You can't go 9-11. We got $10 million or more for players. You can't be spending $1 million a win in conference.
Yeah, no, I agree. Or it's slightly less expensive if you go by losses. We're paying less per loss than we are per win. That's what happens when you go 9-11.
Yeah, man. It's just super frustrating. Super frustrating. And you know what's really sad? Wisconsin and UCLA could have easily been losses. Wisconsin gave us the game with the turnovers they had at the end when they could have like milked the time away, and they fucked up and gave us that game. But when you look at our losses, there are no, outside of Northwestern, which was a home game that we blew, everybody beat us by more than 2 points. Like
we were up a few of those games. I think I'm forgetting.
Yeah, no, but we ended up losing. We ended up losing to Iowa and Nebraska. We were up by 16, but we ended up losing by like 7. We lost by 7 in that game. Yeah. Like it didn't come. I guess what I'm saying is the losses didn't come down to one possession except for Northwestern. So it
is interesting that there weren't a lot of close games. We were either clearly better or clearly worse, and holding some sort of middle ground that just is Indiana basketball, just a mid program with mid results for, yes, a decade straight, but for the most part, for over 30 years.
Ward, we went on the road to Ohio State in a game that meant everything for the season. And if I told you before the game, we're going to shoot 55% from the field, we're going to have more assists than the other team. We're going to have only 12 turnovers compared to the other team's 11. We're going to shoot 17 of 21 from the free throw line.
That's good.
And we weren't even in the game.
Yeah.
Well, we were down by 3 points with 7.5 minutes left in the first half. 3 points. And by halftime, 7 minutes later, we were down by 17.
I blame myself because we were down like 28-20 and maybe a little bit before that, but that's when I took notice.
No, we were 25-23 at one point.
No, at one point it was 28-20, and then we got it to 25-28.
25-28. You're right. With 7 minutes left. Yep.
And we'd been down double digits, but it was like that's when I started noticing, like, hey, we're on a bit of a run. Oh, we've got it all the way now. We've closed within 3. I was like, I thought this was over. Good on us. And then boom, they exploded on us to end the half. Thornton gets the record breaker, and I knew at that point it was over. And it was about that time I picked up my phone. I got onto a website and I ordered the t-shirt that Instagram's been feeding me, which is Indiana Football School.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are going there.
Yeah, it was my, well, I guess it's not a silent protest anymore because I'm talking about it here, but that's how we're coping. And I think that's legitimate. Like, it is a really easy to feel better about being a Hoosier, just turning your attention to a piece of clothing or all the beautiful memories we have of being undefeated Big Ten national champions. And I will keep saying that out loud basically on a daily basis. But it also gives you more of a sober, clear look at how bad basketball has been since the mid 90s. Like, all of a sudden, any sort of spin you like to be like, well, we were the best team in the country in 2012, 2013. And that Yogi senior year, that was really fun. And hey, Trace, like, all that just sort of gets put into its proper perspective of a few freak good seasons or good players and what's otherwise been 30 years of being I want to say shitty, because compared to what we were the previous 30 years.
Yeah, but it's not shitty. It's mediocre.
It's mediocre.
Yeah, it's one Elite Eight appearance in 33 years. That's what it is. One Elite Eight. And how many Sweet 16s? 1, 2, 3, 4 Sweet 16s in 30 plus years. Like, it's just, I'll tell you, I have to talk about this because it does piss me off. We did a lot of gaming the metrics this year, a lot. Yes. We did it with the schedule at the beginning of the year where we ran teams off the floor and we kept our starters in longer than you would normally keep starters in when you're up by 20 or 25 points. But it helped our metrics, both offensively and defensively, which kept us afloat a lot through this year on the net rankings, which take into account metrics. We also did a lot of in blowouts like Louisville and Michigan, keeping our starters in at the end of the games to tighten a 20-point lead to 12 or 10. Watching tonight's game and seeing Tucker with like 7 seconds left sprint the length of the court so he could put in a layup so we lost by 13 instead of 15, it just pissed me off. Like, why? Why are you doing that? It's just stat hunting. And we did a lot of that throughout the year, and that's what shit programs do. That's what non-top programs do. I want to see us play real teams in the non-conference. What?
That's what Signetti does.
But no way. I disagree. How many fourth quarters did Fernando sit out?
Yeah, well, but they're still putting points on the board. But you're right. He was doing
backups
with some of their backups, particularly Alberto.
With your Heisman on the bench. The guy played the fourth. He didn't play the fourth quarter multiple times.
It's just Signetti talks about needing to do that. And I think probably he knew it was becoming less important he do that because of how good this team was. But that's when he's certainly like just boat racing,
fair. I would argue fewer games. You've got fewer chances to show off in football than basketball.
But I guess the greater point is, great, do that. Shore yourself up, do your metrics, play to the last snap the same way it's the first snap. Adhere to all that. If you win, it's like, yeah, that's amazing. You're being dominant and it's wonderful. And if you're being shitty and losing and you're just trying to get these table scraps so you can maybe eke your way in to the tournament at the end of the season, it's putting lipstick on a pig.
It's lipstick on a pig. And I got to say, basketball schedules are very fungible, not like football. Football is very difficult to plan ahead. I don't really understand, maybe just because there's fewer of them. I don't know. They're more precious. Many more.
So and they're such bigger events. They literally have 10.
But there's a lot fewer football teams too. Than basketball teams. they better have a schedule next year that's got a handful of real games in the non-conference. And don't book a Kansas State for your one lone home game.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I mean, how many do you think is the right amount? Because we do it Kentucky, Louisville, Marquette, and Kansas State. They're declining, but we thought they were going to.
State was not real. That was a buy game. We bought them, Ward.
Okay.
We bought them.
All right. So
Marquette, I'll give you. Marquette,
okay, so that's three. How many do you need? You need
five is minimum. Five is minimum.
Okay.
Look at UConn. Look at Duke. Look at Michigan State. Look at Kentucky. Look at Louisville. They were playing 7, some of them 8 real games. Okay. So we need 5. We need 5 real ones to be minimum every year. And I do think those will help you. I think fine, play neutral site games. That helps you. At least you're not in a home environment, but playing Lindenwood and Kennesaw State does not help the team get better. It doesn't.
And that's the point. Rather than gaming the metrics and trying to like build your team's confidence, it's like, no, go against at least 5 other legitimate top 25 programs, which now I think, I mean, the fantasy of being like the best basketball program in the country or even top 10 seems so far detached from reality. If it hadn't just happened with football, I would say that dream is dead, but we can be back there at some point someday, but it does feel like let's walk before we run. And in this case, if you want to get into that always ranked, always making the tournament routine that we used to take for granted, is get yourself ready in the preseason. Be like, this is what it's going to take. And either you have the personnel and you have the scheme, and more importantly, like the heart and the grit to dig deeper, be like, we got to work harder. We got to find some stuff. We got to grow individually and as a team, because we just got waxed by 4 of those 5 teams. But we learned in every one. We're going to take that into the Big Ten. We're going to win a few more games in the Big Ten because of what we learned going against the top teams in the country. And then we're not going to be quite so dependent on wins against Bubble or Bart Torvik or whatever else the committee looks at on Selection Sunday. It was like, no, we just won 12 or 13 or 14 games in the Big Ten. So we're definitely getting into the tournament.
And I would say, like, we can't think that year 2 should be, let's consider it year 1. No, making the tournament, just making it, isn't good enough next year. It's not. What you just said, no doubt you're in the tournament and a team capable of making it to the second weekend. Now, I get it. Things happen in the NCAA tournament. I mean, somebody goes off, a matchup is weird, you get an injury, somebody on the other team goes crazy for a game. But so you can't guarantee a Sweet 16, right? Like, that can't happen.
So what
you better have a team that when you look at, you go, this is a team worthy of being in the second weekend. That needs to be the bar next year.
So you're probably looking at, if you're not a 7 seed, maybe an 8 seed, but like, because
top 7 seed next year, top 7.
Which
means I don't want to be in a situation where we're playing the number 1 seed in the second weekend or the second game. I mean,
oh yeah, fine, but to be
top
there,
7,
like,
which means you're top 28 in the country.
That's what I'm saying. That's top 28 in the country, and it's, again, I don't think anybody would say with the resources. Let's just say it, with a huge amount of cash, that there's any reason in year 2 you shouldn't be a top 30 team in the country.
No doubt. Like, no doubt. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen next year. This season was a disappointment. Yes. A failure. Yes.
Yep.
It was a failure. And we'll see how big of a failure it is, because as of right now, we cannot look at the roster and say there is anybody that we can rely on to be impact next year. Dorn had like a handful of games where he looked great.
That was so weird. I cannot remember. I don't know a comp to what Nick Dorn did this season, which was, non-existent, shows up, works his way into the rotation, and a few games in goes crazy and looks like he might be the best player on the team for 2 or 3 games, and then vanishes like a ghost. And Rabbi had said something, I'm going to paraphrase slightly, but he's never seen somebody who has so much basically confidence when there's no real reason to. And there's a term for it, that it was basically because Nick had not done it on the court against big time opponents. It was like, where does this confidence come from? Like,
well, the term is arrogance, right?
No,
Cockiness?
no, like unfounded, or no,
Okay.
I mean, and this is when he's scoring 20 plus points a game and pouring in 3-pointers from everywhere. And you're like, oh, well, he just knew all along that he had this confidence, even though it was never shown to anybody, at least outside of a practice, right? Nobody in the general public ever saw Nick Dorn coming the way he did. And then he did it. And you're like, oh, okay, well, this guy knew. And apparently Darren DeVries knew. And now we're all finding out. And then he's gone. And that's so bizarre. That's such a bizarre thing, because immediately when that starts happening, not only are we beating Purdue and UCLA, but we're also looking like, well, there's our leading scorer next year. And
or at least one of your 3 guys you can rely on every game. Like, he's your third scorer, one of the top 3 scorers. Because I don't know if I'd ever say, like, he's the Lamar for next year. You still got to go find a guy in the portal or 2 that's going to be that.
Who's hopefully a junior.
Yeah, exactly. But, it's like, I just look at these 3-point percentages. Connor Enright finishes the regular season at 33.8%. Tucker DeVries finishes the year at 34.2%. Nick Dorn at 37%. Lamar Wilkerson, who had a sensational year, as we talked about, finished at 38.4%. We just, Tate and Connerway finishes the season at 27.9%. Like, we made a volume of threes. We didn't shoot them at a crazy high rate.
Not enough to make up for the lack of rebounding, the lack of defense, the lack of athleticism. Like, that was good. That was supposed to be the trade-off. And that's what we were all hoping, that these guys are going to shoot the lights out, not only at home, but on the road, enough to make up for what were these glaring shortcomings for a Big Ten roster. And unfortunately, that hopium was dashed.
Here it is, against top 100 teams in Bart Torvik. We finished the regular season 6-13 against those teams.
Terrible.
And our 3-point percentage as a team was 32.5%, which means it is an inefficient shot for your team. That ranked 175th in the country.
Yeah, sorry. That is nowhere near good enough.
And that's what's so disconcerting, because they made the decision at some point. We missed out on the big guys. We didn't like the big guys that were in the portal. They didn't fit what we wanted. So we're putting all of our eggs in the shooter's basket, right? That's what the team was built as. That's what Darren talked about. That's what the offense is built around. Over 50% of our shots, our 3-point rate against top 100 teams was 50.8%, more than 50%. Well, if you're taking more than 50% of your shots from 3 and you're not even average at it as a team, you have misevaluated, not developed,
don't
or
have
screwed
the
up
right
schematically.
scheme. Yeah. Yep.
That's it. And just another in a long line of failure, disappointing seasons. And I just never thought this year, I really did not think, even 5-6 games ago, I did not think this season would end in the same way that Woody's last 2 years ended. And it did.
Yeah, like I'm not recalling that stretch of games, but it was the stretch of games where we lost like 3 or 4 out of like 5 before we got going against Rutgers, Purdue, and UCLA. But we had a losing streak there, right? I don't know if you have it in front of you.
I do. I'll tell you. So it was, we lost to Michigan, then we beat Rutgers on the road. We came home and beat Purdue, and we beat UCLA.
It was losing to Nebraska, at Michigan State, Iowa, and at Michigan. And I was like, oh yeah, we're missing the tournament. I just knew it. But
then we win 5 of 6.
Right. But it was like Rutgers, to your point. That's like a JV team. That doesn't count. Purdue, great. Okay, but it's at home against our rival, and Woody was like at least 500 against Purdue. Okay, at UCLA, that was a favorable matchup. But of course, getting to watch the double overtime victory against a solid UCLA team. Granted, they're missing players, whatever. I can conveniently ignore all of that and be like, well, I was wrong. But ultimately, in that 4-game stretch in the middle of January, when we clearly could have beat Nebraska at home, we were up by 16, but then just getting humiliated at Michigan State and at Michigan. And then obviously the Iowa game, that was a blowout, and that was against the coach we didn't hire. And that was like, oh no.
At home.
Yes, at home. Yes, at home. So I don't know why I went off on this tangent. I guess it's because I did feel you were like, I could never have imagined this year it was going to end up like this. And I didn't, mostly because I was so distracted with football. When those 4 games happened, in my heart of hearts, I knew this season was going to be disappointing. And then in this stretch, though, let's say from the end of football to the end of basketball, I did start to think, and I think a lot of that is predicated on how much outside shooting we were doing and how deadly Lamar was. And when Nick got hot, we started showing that we could do some stuff down low through Sam. An occasional game, an occasional play, Reed would do some stuff, and he was terrible at finishing at the rim. The worst person over 5'10" to finish at the rim I think I've ever seen play college basketball. But there were moments where it was like, oh, because teams are spread out and they are closing out, Lamar can get by him. Or if maybe Tayton hadn't fallen off a cliff, he could get by him. I started seeing things in the system that I think could work with better players. But it became very clear as the season went on against some of these better teams and even against some just meh teams, we were never going to string enough possessions together in a row on the offensive end to keep up with the disaster that became the defensive side of the ball.
I couldn't agree more. I was just looking at what was the date of the championship game?
It was like the 19th,
something like that, right?
Yeah.
So after that, we had a game like the next day against Michigan where we got blown out at Michigan. Yep. But then immediately went on the road, beat Rutgers, came home, beat Purdue, went on the road, beat UCLA, and it was like all of the focus that was on football goes to basketball, and we rip off 3 wins. It felt good.
Yeah.
And then the wheels came off. I mean, completely. Although yeah, man.
But we saw it there at the USC game. It's like, this is not a team that is locked in. This is
capable of being locked in.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, because if you're not going to be locked in at that point in your season, when your season's very much on the line, like, oh, you've just like it was looking bad, but you just won 2 big games, and that you can't just come out and kick USC's ass after you've had 2 days of relaxing in LA, eating steak and getting massages, and you're just gonna like. I mean, we were 10 feet away from the court. Like, this was not a team that was serious about winning that game really at any point.
Yeah. I mean, look, you and I have had this kind of back and forth the whole time about the mental toughness, which I have come around to understand your argument on that.
I don't think it's about effort. I think it's about mental
that is
fortitude.
My point.
Yes.
Like, this team played hard virtually all year. They really did. They just weren't good. They weren't good from a construction standpoint. And look, we talked about it, Ward, in the offseason. I was worried about the amount of talent on the team. We talked about it.
Yeah.
I was worried before the season started. Did we have enough talent? Well, guess what? We didn't. But let me just finish this point and then go for it. What I was banking on, Ward, was that everything we heard was, whatever you think the talent is, Darren is a good enough coach that you will be a few notches above that. Right? We heard that.
Yes.
We heard that from multiple people.
That was the hope.
And we weren't.
Nope.
We were exactly or a little under what the talent was, because this talent was good enough to win at Minnesota, win at home against Northwestern, and win at USC on the road. It was good enough for those three things. And if you win two of those three, you're in the tournament. We're not even thinking about it. And so we didn't perform above our talent, and we may have performed just under it. And that is upsetting about this team. Again, not saying anything about Darren going forward. He could turn it around all next year. But just looking at this body of work this year was a failure.
I think that's a great point, because what is maybe the ultimate sign of a good coach is the sum greater than the parts.
Yep.
And we know there's so much more into being a great head coach in college these days than just that. But if you're talking about pure X's and O's, nobody was greater than the general Robert Montgomery Knight at taking the talent he had and elevating it to a place so much above and beyond what anybody else could possibly do. You are more insightful than most following this program when it comes to, well, let's say most things. I'll just lavish you with praise.
Thanks.
But
Wow.
you were a part of a very loud chorus that was concerned about the talent on this team going into the season. There was a lot of people who felt that way. I guess I did, because I was just going along with the herd. I wasn't watching tape on any of these guys. I was hoping it would be a Signetti situation where here are these kind of overlooked guys from smaller schools who are very productive, but this coach will just really maximize what they do individually and as a group. But a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't know about this. And you guys were all right. You were all right.
said it from the beginning. Rabbi was like, just looking at the team on paper, this is a bubble team.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
Trevor said it too. And those guys,
I guess
obviously know
what
their
really
shit.
bugs me, if I'm going to get into the weeds schematically, and I'm not going to go that deep in it, because I do think stylistically there were really good things. We space the floor well. We move it well when we're doing what Darren wants us to do.
Yeah.
It looks pretty, and it's fun and it's effective.
Yep.
But the team was better when Tate and Connerway was playing more. They were better. Now, granted, it was the first part of the year. I get it. But Tatum brought, I think, the team's ceiling up. And him getting benched. And look, we've heard stuff behind the scenes that Tatum didn't give his all in practice. And, you see it on the floor sometimes. He has a bit of a lackadaisical attitude and doesn't look like mentally he's locked in, which may be some of what you've talked about. And the coaches know more about that than we do. But the team performed better when Tatum played more. And Connor Enright, who gives his all and plays his ass off, is limited. He's totally limited. And when he played against bigger, faster, stronger guards, he got abused. And he can't shoot consistently. So the other team's scouting report from a third of the season in was, do not guard him. Don't guard him. You almost didn't even need to guard him when he drove to the bucket, because too often he would just drive to the bucket and then kick it. He had a good game today, but today was academic. I mean, like, the game was over with 5 minutes left in the first half.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What else you got?
Man, spring practice. I mean, we're a
Yeah,
football school, baby. I mean, this is it. Like, I think the most merciful thing about this season was that it was so short in the time that we had,
Right.
when we weren't just totally infatuated watching college football, because, those weeks in between the games, because we won every football game we played this year. So from week to week, the dream just kept getting more beautiful and more surreal and more magical and more destined. So yeah, you'd watch the basketball game on Tuesday night, but it could not get you down. And I'm gonna have a good night tonight, knowing that I got an Indiana football shirt on the way. And that as we turn to the off season now of both, I will be thinking a lot more about football in the immediate and long term, because yes, there is spring practice coming, but we got the NFL draft coming. And
Let's talk about that for a second. That's a great point. Look, you're a huge Colts fan. It is near and dear to your heart.
You
I've
mean Raiders?
adopted the Colts.
You mean Raiders fan?
Yeah. I have adopted the Colts largely because of you. I will root for the Raiders because of Fernando, but I've never been more excited about watching the NFL draft.
Yeah.
You know, I typically will tune in a little bit, but I don't care all that much, even though it's become a major event. It's become a pop culture event, truthfully. It's a huge television event.
And I just love, it's so great for the city of Indy. And I know they always talk about maybe going somewhere else, but I hope that never happens because it's such a.
You're talking about the combine.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yeah. I was talking about the draft. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I jumped back to the combine, but I know we're headed towards.
No, look, there's talk about trying to do the draft in Indianapolis, that they're on the list of cities.
Because it's Pittsburgh this year, but have they never had the draft there?
No, because for a long time it was just in New York every year.
Right.
And I think they did Chicago, but
look, I'll gladly never have the draft in Indy if it means the combine gets to stay. Because honestly, I think the combine, you can't just sit there and watch it all day. It's fairly tedious, but I feel like the draft is pretty rough too. And I end up watching a lot more overall of the combine than I do the draft.
Yeah. Look, the draft is more of an entertainment event and the combine is more of a sporting event.
They need you to produce the draft because it is pretty rough watching most of
the draft or the combine.
The draft.
Oh, interesting. Look, I'm really excited, not just for Fernando, but like with the Heisman, like there's less stress about the draft because he's going to be the number one pick.
Totally.
But I am stressed and excited about where Omar Cooper is going to get drafted. Well, I want to hear Elijah Surratt's name, and I want to hear some of our other players.
D'Angelo Pons, we're going to hear his name.
Yeah, and there's some talk about like 6 to 8 guys of Indiana maybe being drafted.
So this is what I heard today at the barbershop, where all the good information is.
The shop, yep.
The shop.
Haven't been to a barbershop in about 20 years.
My guy Rocky was like, he's hearing that the Raiders, because they just traded, they got rid of Max Crosby. I'm like, well, who you think were they going to look to do now that they have another first round draft pick? Because we all know who number one's going to be, who they're going to get in that first round to go with Fernando. And he's talking about a wide receiver. And you know what? It's number the 14th. And I haven't looked at the big board that there's
high.
But when you look at it,
I hope they draft a fucking lineman.
Well, yes, me too. I think they should only get linemen and undrafted free agents. Give them 12 linemen and let them offensive linemen, mind you. The defense can wait till next year.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
Protect Fernando at all costs. But if they are going to get a wide receiver and you're there at 14, and some people have Cooper mocked in the top 20, even if you have a receiver or two maybe available that is slightly ahead of Cooper, like, do you want to make your quarterback feel good? Do you want your quarterback to have instant chemistry with your new wide receiver? Because it's going to be fine with Bowers. Jonty, in the backfield is going to be able to do what he needs to do. So it's not off the table that Cooper could go off the board as their second pick in the first round. I'm not saying I would bet on it, but it could happen.
That's interesting. I also read that they met with D'Angelo Pons.
Oh, I did not read that.
Yeah, I read that. So I don't know where their second, third round picks are, but if they've got a second round pick and Pons is on the board, like the Raiders could become the Hoosiers. I mean, they really could.
Here's another one for you, hitting closer to home. So the Colts traded away Zaire Franklin today. He's their middle linebacker, right? He's the guy with the green dot on the helmet. And it was for, a rotational. Well, he was a starter in Minnesota, but a defensive tackle, right? Basically somebody maybe to spell Buckner. Maybe Buckner doesn't come all the way back from the neck surgery. Who knows? The fact is we need a middle linebacker who can run the defense. And
where is he? I haven't heard much about Aiden. Where is he?
Hearing two Colts talking heads today, they mentioned two middle linebackers ahead of him, and they didn't actually even mention Aiden.
Okay.
So I think that gives you some idea where he was invited to the combine, and some people talking around the combine coverage was like, I don't think anybody's terribly impressed with him physically, but he's so brilliant mentally that it's like, it's going to be really hard to keep him out of a team.
Like a little bit like Micah McFadden was.
Yeah. Like some team's going to invite him in, and I hope it's the Colts. I hope it's in the draft. If not, as an undrafted free agent, and he's going to get some reps at that middle linebacker position, diagnosing what the offense is doing. And they're going to realize, well, who cares if he's not the fastest or he's not the strongest? He is a brilliant quarterback for our defense. And in a day and age where the linebacker position is generally undervalued in the NFL, like literally, they're just not paying that much for linebackers. And one position group that Ballard's pretty good at both identifying and drafting or bringing in is linebackers. I would love to see Fish show up in that spot next year.
Maybe we get somebody from the NFL to talk to us, somebody that follows the draft a little, because Roman Hemby's name has been mentioned as a potential late round draft pick, but and Kalen Black wasn't even invited to the combine.
It's crazy, right?
Kalen Black was every bit as good as Roman Hemby, if not maybe a little better.
I mean, I just felt at least 60% of the time, if not higher, in the back third of the season, all the way through the championship, Kalen was just always a little bit better in any given game, or the biggest plays or the biggest moments. More times often than not, it was Kalen.
Yeah, so I wonder, what is it in the NFL that they see with Roman that they don't see with Kalen? I'd love to dig in. I'm going to look for an NFL guy, a draft guy that can kind of come on and talk to us about Aiden's size. It does seem like linebacker is that position where there are so many athletic freaks, like guys that run a crazy 40 and are bigger and stronger, that they tend to go with those guys in the linebacker position.
Yeah.
Micah McFadden's made a career in the NFL, but he's not a star in the NFL. So I would just be curious to get into that. But to back to the bigger point, the draft is going to be super fun as a Hoosier fan.
Well, and because so many people have made so much about D'Angelo's size. And yes, if he was 6 feet tall or even 5'10", he would be probably the first guy off the board from the cornerback spot. But because he's such a freak, and what was it, a 43.5-inch vertical?
Yes.
Like one of the highest verticals in the history of the combine, certainly at his position, where it's just like, yeah, he's fine, guys. That's how he's going to guard a 6'3" wide receiver, is because he's got 6 inches on him in vertical jump. So I have no idea where that's going to be. It would be awesome if it's Las Vegas too. Let's make it the Las Vegas Hoosiers. We'll road trip over there 2 or 3 times a season. Also, the fun thing about that being in the Chargers division, they're going to be coming here every year too. So we'll be able to
and
see.
Maybe we'll get a Rams game if they on the schedule, they play them once every few years. I don't know how that works. And then I will say, I'm going to be super excited and interested and focused on the portal when it opens the day after the NCAA tournament, because it's everything. I mean, it is going to be everything for this program, what we do next year. There was a lot of argument before this year started about how important is year one. Rabbi and I went back and forth. I said year one is important. Rabbi didn't think it was all that important. Okay, year one's behind us. I don't think you can make the same argument with year two.
Yeah,
year two is super important.
I hope Rabbi was right. Time will tell. But and all these, I think, as stated earlier, not strong arguments that Darren got in late, and you can lay the blame at that. Okay, well, I think those are negligible anyway, but now they're gone. Now that's completely off the table as any kind of pre-excuse. And to Dutch's point, negotiations undoubtedly are going on now. Like our guys, our staff, if they're like every other staff in the NCAA, they have been talking behind the scenes, figuring out since December who's thinking about leaving, who's thinking about going. And to your point, the moment the NCAA tournament is over, it's a shotgun start. And I think we'll find out very quickly in a few days how effective this staff has been over the last few months at positioning themselves. And also with Ryan Carr, part of his whole introductory thing is like, well, I need to, if this is going to happen, it needs to happen now. So I have enough time. Well, I mean, how much time we have till the,
a month,
a month. So a lot can happen in a month behind the scenes when you have good people and plenty of money.
Well said. As always, follow us on Twitter at Hoosier Hysterics for the hysterics. No E.
No I.
But the
sometimes why.
Here's to happier podcasts in the very near future.
Hold on. I got one more thing. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Annie was coming back from the mall today. She's like, I'm stopping by the Lego store. Does anybody want anything? I said, yes. I want a undefeated Big Ten and national championship Indiana University Hoosiers football set. And she said, they don't have any. And I said, are they sold out? And she said, no, they don't have any. And I just want to just point it out, the disrespect that continues for our football program, even after the season we had, is unconscionable.
Lego has always hated us.
From the halls of assembly, you'll hear us scream and shout. Our love of Indiana is manic and devout. Everything I you we discuss in unique manner. We won't be satisfied until we hang another banner. Us two goofy guys go by names of Ward and Eric, and as you probably know by now, we're Hoosier hysterics. Hoosier hysterics. Hoosier hysterics.